So this is the third in my three-part series about sowing seeds. The first part covered the actual sowing of the seeds, the second part covered all the modules and things that I use and pots and the like, and the third part, this part, covers all the different types of compost that I use. So let's take a look. And we'll start with the compost. So I really like this seed starting compost. It is a peat based compost, but it's amazing. It's so incredibly reliable. It's a low nutrient seed starting compost from Levington's. It's Levington's F2 seed and modular compost. As I say, I really like it. There's no need to sieve it. Just being a professional seed starting compost, it is extremely reliable. Results are extremely consistent from batch to batch, bag to bag. It is worth the money. Although it is quite expensive to buy, it lasts a long time. I generally find that seed starting, the compost, the module trays and all of that sort of thing, it cost me about 2% of harvest value. So it really doesn't pay to skimp on seed starting. Just buy good stuff and get your seedlings off to a good start. When it comes to pricking out, for the longest time I would just use whatever was on offer at the garden centre, and it was often this one, Grow More multi-purpose. It was okay, but I've come to realise that there's better options, and in part that is because I've been sent some better composts by the Garden Superstore to try out. And I've tried some of them out. I haven't tried all of them out yet, but these are the composts that I'm going to be working with this year, and I'll make clear which ones I've tried and which ones haven't. So this is the compost that I'm using for my cucumbers, tomatoes and peppers, and I like the fact that there's no need to feed. I'm only using this in the main for potting on, so I'm not planting the mature plants into this. I think it's way too expensive, but I had great results with growing the peppers in this and the tomatoes in this, and they just grew really well. I never needed to feed them anything. They were really healthy, robust plants. They've done really well since being planted out in the ground. I really like planting my tomatoes and peppers in the ground, and I would not kind of recommend this type of compost, really expensive compost, for putting mature plants in. Grow very expensive tomatoes and peppers if you did that, but for potting on, I really liked it. I really liked the composition of it, and it held the water really well as well, so I wasn't constantly having to water them. I like it. Texture is quite coarse, but it's really good. I don't want to open this bag, unfortunately, because I'm not going to need this until next year. So this is my last bag, but I'll also use this for the cucumbers in the conservatory. So we harvested about 350 cucumbers from 4 plants in the conservatory, and they were actually, the mature plants were potted on into big trays that I kind of put on shelves in the conservatory, and grew those. I started harvesting them probably in May, and harvested them all the way through until July. So got a fantastic harvest off them. Hardly ever had to feed them, just gave them a little bit of extra nitrogen fertilizer, but again, this held the water really well, and as I say, didn't need feeding. So just for cucumbers, early cucumbers, I think this is an amazing compost. So you can see the details of that. This is Dalefoot compost. As I say, I got this free from the Garden Superstore, but before I got it from the Garden Superstore, I got it from Booth's Supermarket, and I'm sure you can get it from other places, but it's about £7 a bag. That's why I'd only recommend it for potting on. But tomatoes, peppers and things, really high value plants, so it's worth spending a little money on the compost for them. Next one that I've got to try is this for pots. It's from the same company, Delfoot Compost. And this one, again, same sort of story. 12 months of feeding it, reduced watering, peat free, all of that sort of thing. Good for flowers. I would not use an expensive compost like this for flowers myself. You know, it's too expensive. For anything like this, mature plants, I'm just using my own homemade compost. There's just one scenario where something's high value enough for me that I would use an expensive compost like this, and it is strawberries in hanging baskets. And I've got two options that I'm trying for that. So this is one of the options. I did try my own homemade compost last year. It wasn't really very successful. My homemade compost just doesn't hold water well enough, and it doesn't have enough nutrients in it for long enough for the strawberries. So it did okay, but I wasn't raving about them, and I like to rave about things. So yeah, so I'm going to try this one, and you know, this will do quite a few hanging baskets, and so it's you know, it's not it's not cheap for hanging baskets, but it's worth it for a handful of really early strawberries, or a dozen or so really early strawberry plants. For my main crop strawberry plants, they're in the ground or in containers with homemade compost, but they're bigger containers. So that's the first one I'm trying. I'm only doing it for strawberries, but you know, you might want to do it for pots, baskets, bedding and perennials. Sounds like a really nice compost. It's just not for me. This is the other one that I'm really excited about for the strawberries, because this one includes a wetting agent. Now, its nutrition is probably not as optimized for strawberries as the other one, so I might have to just use the strawberry feed in the hanging baskets. But the wetting agent is really exciting, you know, because the biggest challenge I have with the hanging baskets is to keep them well watered but not over watered, and I think a wetting agent's ideal for that. And this wetting agent seems to last for a long time according to the studies, and so yeah, it's pretty exciting. It's quite a high-tech product, and they've done quite a lot of tests demonstrating that vegetables and strawberries and things grow really well in it. So yeah, again, only for the highest value things. So as I say, early strawberries is an incredibly high value crop for me. You know, I am prepared to pay, I don't know exactly how much this is, but I'll probably put the details in the description below or as an overlay, but it's probably, let's say it's £7 a bag or something like that, and that is worth it for that highest value crop. Then finally, I've got this stuff again, same thing, Delfoot, lots of this. I'm really impressed with the tomato one that I used, as I say, for the tomatoes and the cucumbers and the peppers. So I'm giving this company a real good chance. So this is optimized for roots, herbs, brassicas, salads and cucurbitates. I would, again, not grow plants to maturity in this. The thing that appeals to me here is feeds naturally for 12 months and reduces watering and all of that. So why would I use this one? Well, I would use this one for brassicas in particular that I'm growing over winter. So I will be sowing those in September and October, and I won't be planting them out until February sort of time, you know, maybe even March time sometimes. So they're in the pots for a long time, and the fact that it holds water nicely, so I don't have to worry about it drying out, but also that I don't need to worry about feeding those brassicas for that period of time. And I'll put them probably in a decent sized pot, so probably one of these sort of pots. Yeah, I'm quite excited about that, because I definitely notice with my overwintered brassicas that they're looking a bit sickly, by the time they get to March. Now obviously I could just use a feed, but I'm pretty lazy when it comes to feeding and keeping track of what I've fed and what I haven't fed and how much feed to provide and all that sort of thing. So I'd rather not have to think about it and just use it in the compost. Now one bag will do all of my overwintered brassicas. So again, for roughly £7, that is a really good bargain for me, I think, for a really important crop. So these are overwintered calabrese, overwintered Brussels sprouts, overwintered spring cabbages, overwintered cauliflowers, all of those sorts of things. So really, really important crops for growing overwinter for an early harvest in spring. Easily worth it for me. You know, the harvest value easily in excess of the harvest value. So not 2% of harvest value, like, you know, this seed and modular compost for something that's only going to be in a module tray for 30 days, but for something that's going to be in the module tray for, you know, many months, I don't really mind if it's 30% of the harvest value. That is worth it for the early crops. So that is basically the collection of compost that I'm using for next year, and we'll see how they all do. But yeah, your mileage might vary. Obviously, I've got sent these for free, so it makes it easy for me to play around, invest in a higher quality product than I might otherwise have done. But yeah, I'm really excited about these, and of the selection that I've just shown you, this is the one I'm most confident in terms of using it generally for a run-of-the-mill crop, albeit an overwintered crop, which makes it a little bit special. Finally, potatoes. I grow almost all of my potatoes in containers. I use about 50% of the compost from this year's containers to mulch my beds in the kitchen garden at home, and then I top up with generally whatever's fairly cheap at the garden centre, and I've had good results with this one. As I say, it's just a grow more multi-purpose, available at most garden centres, but also I notice it's available at Home Bargains, and so it's really cheap at Home Bargains. So this is a pretty good one. Yeah, lots of nutrients in it. Obviously I do add nutrients to my potato compost as well, generally blood, fish and bone. And of course you can also kind of just play games and mix the compost together. So in this case I've got the Delfort compost for growing vegetables, which is a very nice nutrient rich compost, and the one that I said I was going to use for overwintering brassicas, but I'm also going to use that for starting my late crop brassicas, so the ones that are either going to go in the polytunnel or under low tunnels in sort of late September time, maybe early October time. And the seedlings are here, and so they're going to be in these trays for a long time. And so what I've done is I've put that compost at the bottom, and I'm just using this standard seed starting compost at the top because it's a bit cheaper. And yeah, so that's the you know, sort of mix and match type of approach that you can also use. But yeah, that is pretty much it for all my composts. If you want details of the products that I use, I always recommend people go to my Amazon store. So there's two ways to buy from the Amazon store. The first way is to just buy it direct from Amazon, and the second way is to use the comment field that I've filled in on each of the items that I recommend in the store, and that will make a note of alternative sources. Now sometimes of course the best source is just your local garden centre, or Home Bargains or B&M Bargains or wherever you shop, a supermarket, whatever. Sometimes it's an online supermarket, garden supermarket like the Garden Superstore. I often just get it from Amazon, which often ends up being the Garden Superstore anyway. But anyway, that's your options. I will put some specific links down below in the description to particular products that I've mentioned, but I use so many hundreds of different things that Amazon is the easiest way to track them. So if you want more details on anything that I talked about in this video and all the other aspects of gardening, then I've got a free ebook. It's linked down below in the description. And yeah, take a read if you want and give me some feedback. My name's Steve. This is the Seaside Kitchen Garden and Allotment channel, and I'll see you soon.